The Interactive Service Hub provides a modern and intuitive end-user experience for the customer service roles within the customer service module. There are interactive dashboards that help assist in organizing and visually determine what tasks may need to be looked at or what type of cases need to be resolved. It also provides an all-in-one interaction wall and a section within the inline reference displayed. The Interactive Service Hub puts your most important information all in one place for the ability to resolve cases quicker. In this module, the objectives are to define how the Interactive Service Hub can significantly improve the quality of service for your organization, to explore the features of multi-stream dashboards and how they can affect the customer service experience, as well as to determine how single-stream dashboards can be utilized to best organize the most important service information, to manage queues and cases from within those streams in Microsoft Dynamics 365, and then finally to discuss how to create and configure interactive dashboards. The Interactive Service Hub comes loaded with a multi-stream dashboard specifically targeted at Tier 1 agents. Users can view and act on their workload across multiple data streams. Now, the streams can show data from views or queues. Say, for example, my activities or my cases, or cases from the queue that I'm currently a member of, and so on. Interactive charts provide a visual snapshot of key metrics related to the work items and also doubles up as a visual filters, which allows agents to slice and dice the information. The visual filter flyout is able to be toggled on and off as necessary, so if you want to see only lists and tiles of information, you can toggle it off. If you want to see charts to help visually check out the data, then simply toggle it on. There's also an additional level of filtering available within global filters to help bring focus to relevant terms.
All right, so now that we've talked about the concept of what multi-stream dashboards are, we're going to go into the system and actually see how they work and how we can use them. So you'll see when we're in the Dynamics 365 environment, one of the things that you'll notice is that when you first log into Dynamics 365, you actually have this information bar, this yellow bar, and with the information bar, you'll notice the first thing it allows you to do is to see how the Interactive Service Hub works. So to be able to launch the Interactive Service Bar, you'll notice I can click on Experience Now. When I do so, you'll notice that it actually does open up a separate tab within your web browser. Not only that, but once it actually launches, we are now looking at our Interactive Service Hub. So it is considered a completely different path than our Microsoft Dynamics 365 environment. Now you'll also notice that when I do go back to my Microsoft Dynamics 365 environment, that I no longer have that prompt to launch the Interactive Service Hub. In my information bar, I'm now prompted to take a look at some of the other additional applications that are available within my Dynamics 365 environment. If I go through and I close the information bar, you'll notice that I do have, again, multiple applications that I can go through and I can review, but I'm not prompted again to go in and launch the Interactive Service Hub. Now, that does not mean that we have to be able to copy the path and have that as a separate shortcut on our desktop. We can always go in and launch this Interactive Service Hub within Dynamics 365 by going up to our module selector. And from our module selector, you can go to Settings. And then in the Settings, under the application on the far right-hand side, under the Application section, that's where you'll see that you also have the ability to launch the Interactive Service Hub directly within the Microsoft Dynamics 365 environment. Now, you can very easily create this as a separate shortcut. So you don't necessarily have to launch the Interactive Service Hub from the Dynamics 365 environment. In fact, you don't even have to have the Dynamics 365 environment open to be able to use the Interactive Service Hub. Now, you'll see that once we are in the Interactive Service Hub, that by default, we actually do have several things available up at the top. And again, we're going to take a look at these in more detail. But you'll notice that we do have a module selector very similar to what we have in the Dynamics 365 environment. And again, we'll discuss these as we continue to work through this. But from here, you'll see I can take a look at my dashboards, my activities, even our primary record types such as accounts, contacts, and even social profiles. And then of course, we can focus on our service type of records of being cases, queues, and knowledge base articles. So not only do you have the module selector, but if you've actually worked with multiple dashboards and you want to very quickly and easily see what recent dashboards you've worked with, you could go through and take a look at the recent dashboards. Now you'll also see that as soon as we go into the Interactive Service Hub, the default dashboard that is available is the Tier 1 dashboard. And you'll notice that there's multiple dashboards that are out there, and we'll take a look at these as we continue to go through, and we'll take a look at these in different demos. But from here, I can easily switch between the dashboards by simply clicking on the link for the various dashboards. Next to the actual dashboard selector, you'll notice I have the ability to refresh it. So if I want to see the most current information, if additional cases were added, or I have actually had more activities that I want to be able to update, if I want to force a refresh of this page, I have my refresh icon. And then you'll also see we have our different flyout options. And again, we'll discuss that in just a little bit. But you'll notice that the most important thing is when we're dealing with multi-stream dashboards is that I have stream of records that are available to me that are not just one record type. So you'll see I can focus on all active cases, not just my active cases, but all active cases. So you can see as far as who they're currently be assigned to. So not only can I see mine, but I can also see other users that these cases might be assigned to as well. Then from here, I can see my resolved cases. So I can see all the resolved cases that I've done recently. And when I say recently, it's based on whatever the date filter is that we have up here. So not only can I see my resolved cases, but I can also look at my draft emails as well as my activities. And not only can I see them, but you'll notice in the actual title bar of each stream type, it'll tell me how many records are related to that record type. So I can see there are 28 active cases. I've got 12 resolved cases for this quarter. I've got 4 current draft emails that I have not sent out yet. And I've got 32 active cases that I'm currently, or active activities that I'm currently working. Now, the other thing that you'll also see is that depending on the record types, next to the actual number of cases, you'll also see that I can change the sort order. So if I want to look at the modified being the most recent to the oldest, I can simply click on that field and it will resort it. But also, more importantly, right next to that field, I can also change the stream properties. So if I wanted to, let's say I wanted to sort it based on owner, I could change it to sort based on owner. And then from here, you'll now see that it shows me all of my records first and then CRM demo records. Again, I can change how I'm viewing it to be able to now look at it in a different order. So not only can you go through and actually change the actual sort, but you can change the field that you want to be able to sort on as well. And you could do that for any of these stream types. Now, you'll probably also see, though, that depending on the record type, the fields that you can sort on are going to be limited, or they're going to change based on that record type. So you'll notice that I can actually now do it by activity type because I'm looking at my activities, or by subject, or even by regarding as necessary, so that I could very easily be able to go through and view my records in different ways. The nice thing, though, is that not only can I actually sort the records, but you'll see, as we've talked about, that you have different ways to be able to have visual flyouts, to be able to better slice and dice the information. So I can now better narrow down and focus on what cases or what are the important things that I need to get done as of today. So in looking at that visual flyout, you'll notice that when I click on it, I can now see for my active cases. So it's showing me as far as the record types, and I can now see it case by priority, case by origin, even by account, And then I can even see case by status. And of course, on this particular one, there are all of the cases that are currently in progress because I'm looking at my active cases. Now, what I can do though is, again, let's say I want to be able to focus on all my high priority cases that came into our phone queue or came in through our phone bank. So to be able to focus on that, you'll now see that when I actually am looking at my visual flyouts, I can click on the records. And then when I do that, not only does the actual visual flyout change, but you'll now see that the actual records for each one of those record types will also get updated. So you'll notice that my active cases and my resolved cases are now updated. So now if I want to narrow it down even further, and I just want to look at any cases that came in via a phone call, I can click on phone, and it's going to narrow it down even further so that I can now see just those cases based on phone calls that came in that I can now be able to work on. So now I can look at just the 3 cases that I want to be able to see. You'll notice also that not only does the flyout changes, but up at the top, as I continue to filter down the records, it will show me to see how I'm currently filtering those records. So if I wanted to, let's say I just wanted to go back to my high priority ones, I can remove the individual filters by simply just clicking on the X next to that field. No different than if I wanted to look at my cases by account and I click on my customer. You'll now see that I'm focused just on priority and customer. But if I want to be able to reset this to be able to look at all cases, all active cases by origin as well as by account, I also have an X at the very end to allow me to clear out all filters. So it will allow me to reset it back to my original view. So that again, I can very quickly and very easily be able to slice and dice those records that I need to be able to focus on. You'll also see that when we're dealing with these visual flyouts, is it's like an on-off switch. So you'll notice I can click on it once to turn it on. If I want to look at my normal records, I can now see just my normal cases. I click on it a second time, and you'll notice that the visual flyout now disappears, but I still have my filter intact. So I can still, if I want to be able to very quickly and easily slice and dice my information and then turn the visual flyout or the visual filter off so that I can now focus on the records that I need to focus on, I have that ability to do so. You'll also see that when I'm actually looking at the various cases, or any record types that I have in here, when I click on the actual record type itself, you'll notice that it will actually open up that record for me. So in this case, we're looking at an email. So if I want to be able to review what we're doing with that email, which is now a draft email, and I haven't sent it yet, you'll notice I have the ability to be able to do that within the Interactive Service Hub. Now again, we're going to take a look a little bit more in details about being able to manage the individual records, such as our cases, our activities, and even our knowledge-based articles in a demo coming up. For right now, just to kind of show you, same thing if I want to look at my active cases, you'll notice that if I just want to see a little bit more detail, I can click on the Show More option and be able to see additional information. So even like on the draft emails, you'll notice I have a Show Preview. When I click on Show Preview, you'll notice that it actually shows me that this was an email of a KB article that I was sending to a coworker. I can hide the preview. So same thing if I click on Show More, you'll notice it's the same thing, very similar to doing the Show Preview. Now the other thing as I talked about is that again, we still have that filter up there. If I want to turn that filter off and be able to look at all my records again, I can simply click on the X, and I'm now back to viewing my multi-streams of active cases, my resolved cases, activities, and drafts. Now, similar to the visual flyout, we also have the ability of using the global filter flyout. With that global filter flyout, it's very similar to what we have within the Dynamics 365 environment in that I have the ability to filter down on my records. And you'll notice that I'm not limited to just the fields that I'm viewing within the different streams. So again, from here, if I want to be able to go in and look at origin, I can select multiple ranges. So if I want to see both phone and email, once I select the options, you'll see that I could either expand that particular field and select more options. So let's say I want to see it for both phone and web, but I also just want to see it for those that are identified as being a problem. And it will show me how much criteria I have for my filters, and then I can click apply. And then from here, again, it will now filter down my records as necessary. I can continue to expand on this if I wanted to. So if I wanted to see if any of these currently have an entitlement attached to it, so I can look up any existing entitlements that I might want to actually have related to it, apply that, and you'll now see that on this particular one, I don't have any entitlements. So let's say I just want to remove that filter. I can come up, click remove filter, and I can go back to what I was working on. Very much like the visual flyout though, I can click the X and it will take me back to all my records. But again, in looking at this, let's say I want to narrow it down for specific products. So let's say I just want to find it for anything that might be related to my 3D printers. So again, I can select that product, click apply. So now if I'm focusing on just specific product types, I can go in and be able to filter down based on a variety of different fields that are available. So we can see, do I have for any of the first response already sent? So if there's something that we need to look up related to their service level agreements, I can very easily filter that down to make sure the first responses have been sent. If I need to make sure that those first respondents have been sent, I can set it to no, click apply, and then again from here, I can continue to look at and drill down to see, okay, when is our resolve by? When is this should be done? What do I need to be able to do the resolve by date by? So again, I can click apply and be able to filter down those records even further as necessary. So you'll notice not only do we have the visual flyouts, but we also even have the global filter flyouts to be able to easily focus on the records that we need to get resolved or focus on those cases or our emails or even activities that we need to be able to have completed as quickly as possible. Now, the other thing, as I was mentioning earlier, is that every record that I'm looking at right now is based on a specific time. So by default, even the active cases that I have as of right now, my resolved cases, my emails, and my activity is all set for this quarter. If I want to, I can change that date. So let's say I change this to month to date. And again, dynamically, as we've seen with the visual flyouts and the filter flyouts, is as I change that date, the records within my streams will now be updated. So a great example is my activities have now gone down to just 29 activities, whereas when I had it for being my quarter, as being this quarter, it was at 32. I can even go through and say, let's just see what we have out there for last week. So again, I can now focus on what records need to be taken care of based on priorities and based on specific timelines. Now, the other thing is that when we're looking at this, some people don't like to be able to see, it's distracting to see all these records all together. So one of the other things that you'll see that you can do with the multi-stream option is you can change the views. So in the lower right-hand corner, right now, I'm viewing all of my streams in the stream view. But I can also click on my tile view to be able to look at my records by tiles. So I can still see that I've got the same number of records. I can still come in and be able to filter down and use my visual filter cues. And as I do so, you'll now see it will reduce those particular records as necessary. So again, as I click on different ones, I can see my active cases versus my resolved cases. And again, if I need to clear out all of my filters, I can simply click on the X and I can click on that icon again to reduce it. What's also nice about this is that if I still want to be able to go in and look at the individual records and access those individual records. You'll notice that as I take my mouse and I hover over each view, that if I click on that view itself, it allows me to go through and look at the various records for that stream. So now if I want to be able to go through and I want to be able to look at that particular case, I can still click on that case and it will take me to the case itself so that I can now focus on it and be able to do the work I need to do to get the case closed. To go back to my tile view, you'll notice I have a back icon and it will take me back to my same view. So I have different options of not only how I can view my streams, but being able to filter down the records that I see within my multi-stream dashboard so that, as we talked about before, I can very quickly and easily focus in on those cases or those activities or emails that need to be resolved based on my Tier 1 dashboard. And as we'll talk about in upcoming demos, not only can I actually have the Tier 1 dashboard, but you have the ability to create your own interactive dashboards if you find that these record types may not be the primary ones that you want to focus on. And again, we'll discuss that in a little bit. But for now, you'll see out of the box, the Tier 1 multi-stream dashboard allows you to be able to look at those records so that you can be able to focus on them and get them resolved in a quick manner.
The single stream dashboard in Microsoft Dynamics 365 is designed for Tier 2 agents. And this comes with a single data stream, which typically shows an aggregate view of the workload. The stream shows tiles that show data from different views or queues, just like the multi-stream dashboards. There are also tiles that show a count of records, where users can just view the records by simply clicking on that specific tile. Similar to the multi-stream dashboards, single-stream dashboards also have a visual filter, which allows agents to further investigate the data. With the visual filter, users have the ability to filter by multiple components, such as case type, case entitlement, or even products, just to name a few. Within each chart shown on the dashboard, users are also able to quickly filter down chart components to view specific data in more depth and can easily remove all filters with the simple click of a button.
All right, so we left off from a previous demo where we're still in our Interactive Service Hub, and we're still looking at the Tier 1 dashboard. But to kind of show you the difference between a multi-stream dashboard and a single-stream dashboard, you'll see that, again, as good examples, the Tier 1 dashboard is a great example of a multi-stream dashboard where we'll have streams of records that we can look at. You'll also, as we talked about, we have different dashboards that are available out of the box with the Dynamics 365 environment. So if I click on the drop-down arrow, you'll see that there's another dashboard, which is the Tier 2 dashboard. Again, typically the Tier 2 dashboard is designed for a Tier 2 agent. Again, the ability to be able to have a single stream to show an aggregate view of the workflow that we're focusing on. And typically what you'll see is, unlike the Tier 1 dashboard, is that we just now have one stream of information, which is related to our active cases. But then we'll still can have available tiles that display the information regarding different queues or views that we have set up. So it's very similar to the multi-stream dashboard, with the exception of two things. One is we only have one stream that our focus is on. The other thing that you'll notice is that with our Tier 1 dashboard or our multi-stream dashboard, we actually had two different flyouts that were available, our visual flyout and then our global flyout. But with the single stream dashboard, you'll notice that instead of having a visual stream flyout, a lot of the information that we would see in a visual stream is already available that we can still filter down on, just like we can in a multi-stream dashboard. So very much like we had before, if I want to be able to go in and just look and prioritize my cases and look at just my high priority cases, I could click on the link. From that chart, And from here, you'll now see it will actually filter down and look at all of the active cases that are currently set to high. You also notice that over here, that one of the views I also have are my active cases. So of those 9, 8 of them are my active cases. And then just like we had before, as I scroll down, you'll even see that I even have it by incident type. So if I want to look at just those service type of cases, I can filter down even further. And then from here, if I wanted to go even further and focus on whether it's email or it's phone, I can filter down my records. And just like with our multi-stream dashboard, I can see how those records are filtered. And as they're filtered, I can go through and remove any of those filters as necessary. And now my single stream dashboard and the filters that I have and the records that I have will update. Again, I can go back, I can turn this off, and very similar to what we talked about in our multi-stream or tier 1 dashboard, I can still go through and still make changes. So if I want to sort by a different record type, so again, let's say I want to do this by my resolved by SLA status. I can select OK. And then from here, if I wanted to be able to see as far as what that status was, I could scroll through. And you'll notice that even though I can't see that field right now, I can be able to know that that's how it's currently scrolling through my records. Again, I can maybe change this to being by owner, since it is all active cases. So again, even though I've got 28 active cases, 21 of those are actual mine. And then if I resort it, so I'm still looking at all active cases. But just like before, I'm going to change this back to modified on, select OK. I also not only have the ability to drill down based on some of the visual filters and drill back on those records, but I can also still use my global filter. And with my global filter, if I want to be able to see if I have any that have current entitlements out there, I can look at current entitlements and be able to apply those and be able to see if I have them set up as necessary. You'll notice on this particular one, we don't have any current entitlements. So a couple of the other things that you'll see that we can do is not only do we actually have, again, our active stream, but over on the right-hand side, similar to what we had with our tier 1 dashboard in that we have tiles. Again, the difference being is I can see both my stream and my tiles at the same time. Now, what's different about this, though, is when it comes to my tiles, I don't have to go in and change the view. But just like what we did look at with the actual multi-stream is that when I do have my tile view and I click on that view, I still have the ability of going through and scrolling to look at the underlying records. And again, it's not just related to any views, but if I had any queues that were set up, I could actually go through and scroll through the records of any queues that I might be a member of as well. And then just like as we talked about before, very, very similar. If I want to go through and I want to be able to filter down all of the functionality that we discussed with the multi-stream dashboards are going to be exactly the same with the single stream. Again, though, the only focus is that we are dealing with one single stream of information and then being able to filter down from there. So as far as going through and setting it up, again, the goal being is that you have the ability to see that single stream of information so that they can focus on what they want to be able to pay attention to. So typically a tier 2 dashboard might be for individual support technicians that might be working on a support desk, whereas the tier 1 dashboard might be more geared towards support managers who want to be able to see multiple different queues or active cases for multiple users at the same time. But again, you'll see it's very easy to switch between the two different view types of being a multi-stream and single stream view very easily.
With the Interactive Service Hub forms and dashboards, it is easier to maintain context while addressing customer issues. Since it's designed to make it easier for customer service agents and managers, of course, it's easier to manage queues and cases directly from streamed dashboards. Users are now able to resolve cases even faster with streamed dashboards. For example, if you're just on the phone with a customer and helped resolve their case, you can quickly resolve it directly from within the dashboard by highlighting it and clicking the Resolve Case button. On the other hand, if the customer has no longer had an issue and somehow worked it out itself, you can cancel that case directly from within the dashboard as well. Another key part of resolving cases includes queues. Routing cases or adding cases to the correct queue is imperative to the case resolution process so that the right people can get the right cases. This is why you're able to select a case, again, directly from the dashboard, and add it to a specific queue. Along with that, you can also select one or multiple cases and apply a routing rule quickly and easily while still viewing your dashboard. Now, some other options that are available on the Stream dashboard for cases include the ability to do not decrement entitlement terms, to be able to delete the case, or assign or reassign cases to other users or teams. The Interactive Service Hub almost makes it so that you don't have to go into the actual case form all that often, all within a simple click of a button.
All right, so now that we've taken a look at the two different types of dashboards that we can use within the system, we can now go through and follow up on some of the other functionality that we have available, such as being able to manage queues and cases within those streams. So we left off in the last demo of looking at our single stream dashboard. We're going to go ahead and we're going to navigate back to our Tier 1 dashboard. And again, as we've talked about, that one of the things that you can do, and of course, because we have these cases and we are working on various cases, we want the ability to be able to go through and manage the cases within our dashboards. So if we wanted to, I want to be able to go through, and as we talked about in another section or another demo, that I can click on a case, and when I click on that case, it opens up the Interactive Service Hub case form. Now, the form is a little bit different than how we see it typically within the Dynamics 365 environment, but you'll still see that we have all of the relative information that we need to be able to manage this case to closure. Now, you'll also notice that within my case form, I do have my business process workflow that I could go through and I can manage. So I can still go through, I can identify the information, I can move it between the stages as necessary. So if I wanted to be able to assign it to someone else, or even move to the steps of resolution. And then I can go back, very, very similar how the standard process or how the standard case form works within Microsoft Dynamics 365. The other thing that you'll notice is that when I open the case, a couple of things that you'll see. You'll see I have a back icon that will allow me to go back to all of my records that I have within the dashboard. I'm going to go ahead and we're going to open that record again. So we'll open up that case. But not only that, but before we go through and we talk about the other portions of the actual case form, you'll notice that right next to the actual case or below the back button, I have a next record icon. So again, I can very quickly and easily navigate between the cases that I have within that view that I'm looking at. So if I want to be able to see if there's anything that I want to be able to address or review, I don't have to keep going back to the actual dashboard to look at the various cases that I'm working on. I can very quickly and easily navigate between the cases by using my next and previous buttons. So if we go back to the tablet issue that we were working on, you'll also see that right below the case title, I have several tabs. Again, very similar to the tab selector, but this is again where I can now see other sections related to my cases. So if I go to my summary view, in my summary view, you'll see it's broken up into three main sections. On the left, where we talk about the general information, I can see my contact information of not only the account, but their email address and their phone number. So right from here, if I needed to be able to send them an email, I have the ability to click on the email icon and be able to send an email out as necessary. Or if I wanted to be able to have, when we had the automated phone systems, I could actually send and make a phone call directly from here as well. You also see I have the priority. So if I wanted to, you'll see I have the ability to go through and change the priority, as well as the created on date. And then I can even see the statuses if I'm dealing with any kind of service level agreements. I can see that information right from my summary view. And then of course we have our case title, our subject. So if I want to be able to assign it to another subject, I can assign it to a subject. Our origin. So again, if I want to be able to go through and assign it to a different origin, I could do so. And then you'll even see that I can go through and I can assign my products, my entitlements, and even provide a description as necessary. Now, not only do I have that, but you'll also notice, kind of like the interaction section of the case form, I have my timeline. And within my timeline, I can see any kind of transactions that have happened. So on this one, I can see that it was actually routed to a queue. I can go through and be able to see any types of activities. And not only that, but you'll also notice on my timeline, I have the ability to go through and refresh that information. And not only do I have the ability to refresh the information, but you also notice that in that same bar, I have the ability of going through and filtering. So if I want to filter for just certain dates, so everything that's happening for this month, and then I can even go through and tell it just to filter out. Let's say, for example, I just want to see all notes related to this case, or I want to see all activities. So you'll notice like an auto post of certain things that are automatically posted, such as it being routed to a case, or that it's being routed to another queue. I can see that information. But if I just want to focus on, okay, well, what activities have been performed against this case, I can simply click on activity, and then from here, now be able to preview it. Not only can I preview it, but I can even from here click on the new record icon and be able to create new activities directly from within the case. Again, very similar to the standard Dynamics 365 case form. You'll also see on the right-hand side that I can see any other related cases. So if there are other cases that the customer has out there, I can see as far as their current case, as well as the status. And again, if I want to be able to refresh that information, I can refresh it, and I can drill back and look at those cases as necessary. So you'll notice I can go through and be able to look at the details of that case without ever leaving the current case that I'm in. So if I wanted to see if it was related to, or if there was an issue that happened before, how is it resolved? So I can drill down and be able to look at that information directly within that actual case record. You'll also see that not only can I look at my case information, but if I have any active entitlements, I can see that entitlement status as well. So all of this is just for my summary information. You'll also see that if I want to look at more details on this, I can see additional details, again, such as origin, if I want to assign a different contact person, and then as well as my products that might be related to this, as we talked about the entitlements, more description information, but then also, if I want to, I can go in and I can update the type that I want to be able to have as to whether this is a problem, a question, or information requested. I can put follow up by dates as to when do I want to be able to follow this up by. So let's say I want to follow up by tomorrow, and I can set whether or not I've actually responded to their information. You'll also see that we can even have their social details available within my Details tab. Then from there, if I have any related cases, so if we've merged any cases related to this, or if I want to create new child cases, I can create new child cases. And then also see if I have any KB articles that might be related to this case as well. What's also nice is if I go back to my, speaking of KB articles, if I go back to my summary tab, you'll see that not only can I go in and see my related cases, but I can even go in and click on the knowledge base search. And again, based on what we have for the actual case title, I can now see if there's any KB articles that might relate to this. And then even from here, as we've talked about in previous lessons, I have the ability to link the KB article and be able to go through and execute additional actions, such as link it and email the article. Again, all done within the case itself. So not only can I see if I have any KB articles associated to it, from here, I can link those articles directly within the case. And then lastly, if I want to see the details regarding if we have service level agreements set up, I can go in and see the status of my service level agreements for this particular case as well. So this is just all the details of what we can see regarding the case that we are trying to work on, which again, the goal is to be able to have all the information that we need related to a single form. So I can very easily and quickly be able to help the customer and resolve this case. You'll also notice though that we do have a command bar. And in that command bar, if I wanted to, the command bar is very similar to what we see within the standard Dynamics 365 case form as well. In that, I have the ability to, if I want to save and route it using the standard routing rules, if I want to create a child case associated to this particular case, I could create a child case. And then of course, more importantly, I can tell it that I want to resolve the case. And so I can give it my resolution. And let's say rebooting the tablet appeared to resolve the issue. Set up as far as any billable times that I want to be able to have, and then add any remarks. Click on resolve. And then once it's clicked on resolved, you'll now see that the status changed to problem solved. Very similar if we've talked about in other exercises or other lessons that as necessary, if I needed to, I could go back and I can reactivate the case. So if I wanted to, I could go through, say, yes, I want to reactivate this case, because apparently we thought rebooting the tablet would resolve the issue, but it did not. And as we've talked about that as we go through, and if I have to reactivate the case, it'll actually go through and change the resolution activity as necessary. But let's say I did want to go through and let's say I need to add it to a queue, or I wanted to assign it to another user. So from here, I could tell it that I want to assign it to another user. And I can now select the user that I want to be able to go in and take a look at it because I think they might have a better understanding or see if we can go deeper with this. So I might want to escalate it to another user. So now you'll see I can actually change the ownership of it and be able to go through and do some of the other standard functionalities, such as do not decrement the entitlement terms. So let's say I don't want this to be configured as being part of their entitlements that they have available. Or I might even want to convert this to a knowledge base article or run an actual workflow process on this. So a lot of that same functionality that we had available within our standard Dynamics 365 form, we have available within the Interactive Service Hub. You'll also see that if I go back to and look at all of my active cases that we have in here, so again, I'm going to go through and refresh it. We still have those cases that are out there. And you'll notice that when I actually hover those cases, I have a checkbox that's available. So I can go through and you'll notice as I mark multiple checkboxes. So let's say, for example, that I'm actually going to turn on my visual flyout and I'm actually going to go through and filter down on just my email origin cases. So now I have 10 of them. So one of the things I can do is, let's say I want to route these to the appropriate support queue. So I can highlight multiple cases, and then from here, you'll see that I have the ability to be able to merge cases, associate child cases, apply routing rules, or as we talked about, I can tell it to add it to the queue. So if I wanted to add this to my email support queue, I can select the queue, I can click on add, and now by default, if we went in and we actually went back to our Dynamics 365 environment, I went to my service module, I went to queues, you'll now see those cases will now show up in that queue for me automatically. So you have a lot of the same functionalities that you have within the Microsoft Dynamics 365 environment. The difference though is that this allows me to focus on all of the cases that I need in a very simple, easy to understand, easy to filter view. And not only can I go through and actually focus on the different dashboards, but you'll even see that you have some related to knowledge base managers. So I can go through and I can look at proposed articles versus draft articles versus expired articles, and even look at my most popular ones. Or I can look at my knowledge base dashboard. So there's things that we can go through and we talk about as far as not only being able to look at our multi-stream dashboards or our single stream dashboards, but to be able to see dashboards that we can use to manage our knowledge base information as well. And then of course also be able to easily be able to manage our cases, close our cases, route the cases as necessary, all within a single view.
How can you create an interactive dashboard of your own? Well, before we go in and take a look at it, let's talk about a couple of key points. In order to create a new interactive dashboard, users must have specific permissions, such as customizer or administrator. Users can also choose from 4 different layouts to build either a single stream or multiple stream interactive dashboard. Each type of dashboard, whether it's the single or multi-stream, contains different options in which to choose, each with diverse layouts, number of columns, and chart sizes. Depending on the layout chosen, different options will be offered to add to your dashboard. Creating them are similar to how to create regular dashboards. However, there are limited specific chart components that are available to choose from. For example, in the visual filter section, you're only able to add charts. No iframes or other web resources are available. In the stream section, you'll see that it's possible to add different lists to customize streams depending on the stream type selected, whether it's the multi or single stream. And finally, during the creation process, you'll notice that the system provides us a creation wizard. In many ways, for those familiar with creating dashboards, either system or personal dashboards, there are many of these same sort of features and functionalities with creating them with the interactive dashboards. Now that we understand some of the elements that are involved with creating the interactive dashboards, let's go into the system and let's see how it's actually done.
All right, so now that we've taken a look at the standard dashboards that are available that we have within the Microsoft Dynamics 365 environment, we're going to take a look at how to be able to create our own interactive dashboards. Now, to be able to do this, we're going to go ahead and we're going to close out of the Interactive Service Hub because we're going to need to be able to refresh it when we actually create our new interactive dashboard. And where we're going to go through and create the interactive dashboard is going to be within our Microsoft Dynamics 365 environment. And we're going to go to our settings. And then from settings, we're going to go to customizations. Now, as a reminder, again, the only typical users or Dynamics 365 users that are going to have the ability to go in and create these types of dashboards are either going to be someone as a system customizer or administrative permissions or security privileges. So out of the box, the standard user doesn't have the ability to go in and create these types of dashboards. Now, the other thing that we also want to make sure that we want to do is we're going to go and we're going to click on Customize the System, which will pull up our customization window. And in our customization window, we want to make sure that we have a couple of things configured first. Now, again, this lesson isn't to go through and talk about all of the steps necessary to customize the Dynamics 365 environment, but there are some things that we want to check first. one of the things we want to check is under the case entity. We're going to go to case, and we want to make sure that the case form is enabled using the interactive experience. So you'll see that in the actual case form, under the General tab, we just are double checking to make sure that under the options for entity, we have the checkbox marked to enable for interactive experience. Now, that should be marked by default, but because every organization may have different functionalities within their Dynamics 365 environment, we're only going to go through and double check to make sure that is marked. Now, once that's marked, to be able to go in and create new interactive dashboards, under the components, we want to go down to dashboards. And this shows us all of the dashboards that we have within Microsoft Dynamics 365, including our system dashboards that we have for sales, service, marketing, and any of the other components that we might have or the modules that we might have installed. To be able to go in and create a new one, you'll notice we can see that we have our Knowledge Base Manager one, or an easy way to be able to sort this is you can sort this by type. And when you sort it by type, you'll see that it will show us all of the existing interactive dashboards that we currently have available. And that should be consistent with what we've been looking at so far in this module. Now, to be able to go ahead and create a new one, this is where we're going to use our command bar. And we're going to click on the new action, except this time you'll see you have a drop-down arrow next to the new action where we can choose between our standard Dynamics 365 dashboard or being able to create our interactive experience dashboard. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to choose our interactive experience dashboard. And the first thing we do is it's now going to take us basically through a wizard. And the first thing it's going to do is it's going to ask us, what type of layout do you want? Now, when you look at the layout, or actually the first thing it's going to ask us is, what type of stream do you want? So again, you'll see that we can have a multi-stream or we can have a single stream. And when you select them, you'll notice that when I look over here, it kind of shows you what the layout's going to look like. So what they mean by a 4-column layout is I can have up to 4 streams of either views or cues, and I can have 4 different visual flyouts that are going to be available to me. If I choose 3, again, you'll see that I can have a certain number of streams that are going to be available to me and then have 3 visual flyouts. So you'll see that as far as going through and looking at these, you have different options when you're dealing with the multi-stream. Now, if you go in and look at the single stream, again, the whole thing with the single stream is you have one stream, but then from here, you can have multiple visual flyouts and then multiple tiles as necessary. So it's really just a matter of what kind of information that you want to be able to have on that dashboard. For us, let's say we want to create a little bit more of a dynamic sales manager dashboard. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to leave the default, which is our 4-column overview. So we're going to actually have 4 different flyouts or visual flyout columns or charts that we can use. And then we're going to have the various lists and cues that we want to be able to see below that. So once we actually choose our layout and we choose our type, we're going to click Create. So once you click Create, you'll notice the first thing it's going to ask you is, what do you want to name it? So again, we want to make this as user-friendly so that whoever is using this interactive service hub knows what type of information that should be available on this dashboard. So we'll call this one our Service Manager Dashboard. And you'll see that when it comes to going through and being able to create those dashboards, you're not limited to just cases. Now, cases is the typical one since it is an interactive service hub that we're using, but you'll notice that it's not the only one that you're limited to. You can, again, as we've seen before, and we'll take a look at a little bit further in the next demo about some of the other ones, such as our knowledge base articles. You also have queue items, even social activity, connections, categories, activities as we've discussed, or even emails. So again, you have different options with different record types that you can use the Interactive Service Hub for. We're going to go ahead and we're going to keep this one related to cases. Now, when we choose cases, the next thing it's going to ask us is what entity view do we want to use? So what they're asking is, based on this view, what kind of visual filters do you want to have available? So based on the view that we have is going to be based on what kind of filters that we have available. And you'll see that the standard views that are going to be out there are related to the same system views we have for our cases. So depending on the view type, so let's say I choose my knowledge base articles, you'll see that my entity views are going to change based on the entity itself. So since this is a service manager, I don't necessarily want to have it for my active cases. I want to be able to have it for all active cases. And then from here, you can also see, how do I want to be able to filter this up by? Do I want to filter it by based on created on date, escalated on date, modified on date? So from here, again, you can choose when you actually have that time frame filter, what field is it going to look like, or what field is it going to look at to be able to filter that information. So you might want to have it based on modified date or modified on versus created on. Again, for this example, we're going to leave this to being created on. And then as we discussed, you can then set up what the default time frame is going to be. So if you remember when we looked at our Tier 1 dashboard, the default time frame was this quarter. So let's say I want this to be this month. Because most of the time, especially when we're talking about managing our queues, we want this to be the most updated information. I might even have it as being this week, so I can see a weekly snapshot of what's happening. That's all just going to be dependent on, again, who's going to be using this and what information they want to see. Now, once I fill out the top part of the dashboard, again, everything that I'm going to put below that relating to my visual filters and relating to my streams is going to be driven off of that case. So from here, I can go through and let's say that I'm going to add a couple of my charts. So to be able to add a chart, this is like some of the same functionalities that you have within the Microsoft Dynamics 365 environment. There's more than one way of doing so. I can use my command bar, and you'll see I have an action button to be able to create a new or insert a chart, or the ability to insert a stream. But again, as part of that wizard, I also have a visual prompt to be able to guide me of where I want to put those dashboards or where I want to put those charts. So from here, I'm going to click on the first one. And as soon as I do, you'll now see that it's going to prompt me and ask me for additional details. So again, based on the record and based on the view, it'll say what kind of chart do you want to use. So let's say I might want to have cases by priority per owner. So I can now see as far as how many cases each owner has and what the priority levels are. So I'm going to add that. And then let's say I also want to have case mix by, let's see, case mix by type. So again, I can see problems versus questions versus requests, or none that have been specified. And then I also might want to do case mix by priority. So again, we'll go through here. And you'll notice that as I select it, I can now get a visual of exactly how it's going to show up within my dashboard. So you'll see some of these other ones that we have. Here's by incident type. We can even look at by business unit if we want to be able to go through and break it out by business units. We can look at our case creation trend. Or I can even look at active cases by agent. Now, because I actually have 4 different visuals, I'm going to be a little bit more selective on this one. So I am going to actually have my case mix by priority, so I can very easily tell and know not only as far as by the type, but also by priority. And then the last one I also want to be able to see is, let's just say on this one, I want to be able to look at my case resolution trend. Let's actually look at my service leaderboard. So from here, I can actually even have my service leaderboard set up. So now that I have my visual flyouts, now the next thing I can do is I can decide what information, again, is that service manager going to want to be able to see. So of course, one of the first things we probably want to have is, since this is based on my active cases, I can click on the option within my streams, and you'll now see I have two choices. I can either choose a different view, or as we discussed previously, I can actually even look at different queues. So let's say on my view, I do want to be able to go through and I want to be able to have my active cases. Now, to add a second stream, you'll notice I can simply just click in that stream section. And on here, let's say I now want to have a queue. And the queue that I want to be able to go through and I want to look at is going to be my escalated cases. And then off of that queue name, you'll even see from here, I can filter that down to even further, saying I want to see either all the cases in the selected queue, all items, because if you'll remember, with queues, you cannot only have cases, but you can even have activities as well that reside within the queue. So I could go through and either look at cases that are available to work on, cases I'm working on, or items. So on this particular one, I'm just going to say all cases in the current queue. And then we're going to do one more. We're also going to do another queue. And let's say I want to look at my Tier 1 support queue. So again, I can change this to queue. And I'm going to go down and see if we can find my Tier 1 support queue. And on here, I want to see cases available to work on. And then again, as we talked about, because you can have more than just cases, you'll see that this is where you can also choose specific activities. So once I have that selected, let's say the last thing I want to do is the service manager is also responsible for doing the initial review of all KB articles before they get approved and published. So not only am I limited to as far as looking at those active cases, but you'll also see that again, under the view, if I wanted to, I could even choose knowledge-based articles, and I can go through and even see, I want to look at, let's say, for example, draft articles that need review. Or again, I can just have it as being all draft articles. Select OK, and you'll now see that it adds that stream. So once we've gone through and we've decided the streams that we want, and then the visual flyouts that we want to have available on this dashboard, now what we can do is we want to save this, and then we want to publish it so that it can be available within my Interactive Service Hub. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click on the save icon to make sure it's saved. And then back in my customization window, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click on Publish All Customizations. Again, that's just a quick, easy way. Now, I could also highlight that particular interactive dashboard and just click on Publish to publish that particular one. But again, for brevity's sake, we're going to go ahead and just click on Publish All Custom Applications. All right, so once it's finished published, you'll notice it will know because the dialog box will go away. So now that it's been finished publishing, what we can do is we're going to close out of the customization. We're going to go back to settings. And again, we're going to relaunch our Interactive Service Hub. Now, again, because we now have a new dashboard, you'll see that with the Interactive Service Hub, as we mentioned before, as it's loading, you'll see it's processing that metadata, and it will actually go through, and again, it's downloading some temporary files on that local machine. And then any customizations, such as new dashboards, will also be downloaded, and then it will allow the view to be available for you. And again, depending on how many dashboards you have and depending on the amount of data you have, this process can take a few minutes to be able to finish in getting the Interactive Service Hub set up. All right, so once it's done downloading those local files, again, you'll see it will take us back into our Interactive Service Hub. What we should be able to see if it published correctly is that now when I go to my dashboards, I click on the drop-down arrow, I now have my Service Manager dashboard. Click on my Service Manager dashboard to see what kind of information we have. And you'll now see that I have my active cases. I can see all cases that are currently in the escalated queue, all cases that are currently in Tier 1 support queue, as well as any draft articles that need review. So again, kind of just taking a look at what we're seeing there is if I go to my service, I go to queues, and you'll now see there's my escalated cases. So you'll see that we have 2 of those there. If I go to my Tier 1 support, you'll see I have 6 cases. And on this particular one, you'll see that of those 6 cases, again, the filter that I had were cases available to work on. So again, if we look at cases on here, available to work on, you'll now see that of the 6 cases, there's 3 that still need to be worked on, that there's actually a couple that are currently being worked on already. So again, I can see that yes, there's cases in the queue, but there's only 3 that are actually not currently being worked. And then of course, as we talked about, I can now also see my KB articles that need to be reviewed at this point. And then as we looked at, if I click on my visual flyout, I can now see my cases by priority, by user. So again, if I just now want to look at for just my CRM demo user, and you'll now see it brings it down to 3. If I want to close out of that, and then again, I want to look at case by type. So if I want to just look at all my problem cases, again, you'll see I will allow me to filter down. And even from here, I can now look at my service leaderboard very quickly and very easily to be able to see what cases my CRM demo user is working on versus, again, if I go back, and what cases I might be working on. And again, as I change those, you'll notice the other charts will also automatically change. So from here, I can now see as far as with each one of these as it's going to filter down for me. So the nice thing is that not only do we have the out-of-the-box available dashboards, but you have the ability to create your own custom dashboards to be able to fulfill the company's needs, to be able to look at the service cases or any types of records on an on-demand basis.
So we just discussed how the Interactive Service Hub dashboards and forms help you prioritize your workloads and solve cases faster. Now, let's talk about the different scenarios that can be enhanced even further with the Interactive Service Hub, such as service level agreements. You can apply service level agreements to cases and other custom entities. This functionality is the same whether you use the web client or Interactive Service Hub through a mobile device. You can also track progress of service level agreement key performance indicators with the timer control. So it will now be easier to analyze time spent for each case right from the Interactive Service Hub. You can simply add the SLA timer to the main interactive experience form for easy access. Now that the Interactive Service Hub can be integrated with the Unified Service Desk, users can open and control Interactive Service Hub pages inside the Unified Service Desk. Some of the capabilities include the ability to add iframes and web resources to the interactive experience forms to create extensibility scenarios and configure the lookup field properties to show filtered records in the interactive experience forms. The Interactive Service Hub can also enhance the use of knowledge base articles by allowing users to configure language filters in the knowledge base search panes so that customer service representatives can filter knowledge base articles based on languages. There are 2 out-of-the-box dashboards to assist with keeping the knowledge base active and current. The Knowledge Manager dashboard displays a list of proposed articles, draft articles in need of review, as well as expired articles in need of review, and not only that, but most popular articles. Whereas the My Knowledge dashboard is catered more towards your personal activity within the knowledge base, such as possibly any articles you might be published or that you might have published, or chart displaying all of your written articles categorized by subject. If your organization does not have a specifically assigned knowledge manager, it is easy to update expiring articles by each user utilizing their own knowledge dashboard.
All right, so we've talked about the different dashboards, and we briefly discussed about when we are looking at the dashboards within these records that we are talking about as far as the SLAs and whether or not we can see as far as the status of the SLAs. Again, directly within the cases, you'll see that I can see the details with the timer. I can also go to the SLA tab and be able to also see the status. And this is additional reporting that we can be able to look at as well off that information within the Interactive Service Hub. Now, the other thing you can also do, and as we briefly touched on when we were talking about the cases, is not only go through and review case details, but we can also look at our knowledge base details. So as I briefly discussed, you'll notice that we have a knowledge base manager and my knowledge dashboard. When you take a look at the two of them, they're very similar to the Tier 1 dashboard and the Tier 2 dashboard in that the sense that one is considered a multi-stream dashboard, the other one is considered a single stream dashboard. So going through and viewing my knowledge manager dashboard, you'll see that again, I've got multiple streams that I can go through and I can review. You'll see I have my visual flyout as well as my global filter as well. You'll notice that on my knowledge manager dashboard, I have the ability to look at all proposed articles, articles that are in need of review, expired articles that might need to be reviewed, and then not only that, but we also have the most popular articles that are sorted based on modified date. So this might be something that I might change the properties on and do it based on, let's say, rating or status to be able to look at that information. Or again, I can even do it based on title. So when you look at this, and you'll notice that I can come in here and I can click on my visual flyout. I can be able to filter down based on owners or based on status reason. So if I just want to see those that have been proposed, I can now filter down and look at those. Or I can remove that filter and I can do it based on subject. So if I just want to think anything related to products versus doing it for maintenance. And I can now filter down that information as well. So being able to go through and look at the actual dashboard itself, it's very, very similar when we're dealing with managing the cases. Now also to be able to go through, you'll see that if I can go to my knowledge dashboard, again, this is everything related to my articles that I've been working on. So if I have multiple articles, I can see all of my active articles that I have out there. And again, I've got my visual indicators to be able to filter down by subject, by owner, status reason, and then even the views by subject. Then I can also use or have my views where I can see any published articles, my expired articles, and articles expiring this month. And just like with the other dashboards, if I want to see, well, what articles are those, I can simply click on that, and then from there be able to drill down and look at my article detailed information. And as we were mentioning, the other thing that you can do is that once we actually have those articles, and I might see as far as my published articles, say I change that back to my knowledge manager. And again, I can look at my most popular articles. So I can see some of the more popular articles that I have. Again, being able to look at the article itself when I click on it, not only can I look at the contents of it, but if I go into analytics, under my analytics, I can see the last time it was updated, how many times the article has been viewed, and even as far as where it's been viewed from. I can also see if the case or if any cases have been linked to that particular KB article. But more importantly, as we talked about, the functionality of the actual dashboard itself is not just limited to working with your cases. You'll see that you can also work with the various other record types within the system as well to be very quickly and dynamically view and filter the records within that dashboard.
We've learned about all of the different components involved in the Interactive Service Hub. and how it provides a modern and intuitive experience for customer service agents. The interactive dashboards, all-in-one interaction wall, and visually appealing graphics help organize data and reduce the time it takes to resolve cases. In this module, the objectives were to define how the Interactive Service Hub can significantly improve the quality of service for your organization, to explore the features of the multi-stream dashboards and how they affect the customer service experience, as well as to determine how single-stream dashboards can be utilized to best organize important service information. We also discussed managing queues and cases from streams within Microsoft Dynamics 365, as well as how to create and configure interactive dashboards.